The country music scene has always had its fair share of divisive figures. Whether they made some regretful comments or committed outright murder, these were the biggest controversies country musicians have found themselves in. In 1967, Dolly Parton landed a national country hit with Dumb Blonde. By the end of the year, she was starring as the main female vocalist on the syndicated country-themed variety program The Porter Wagoner Show. That weekly, highly visible platform launched Parton to mega fame, but the grind became too much for the singer. In her book, she explained, "Those 7 years of being with Porter, it was damn near like being married to him. You're working together and putting in your creative self, putting in every emotion that you have." In 1974, Parton emphatically launched her solo era by leaving The Porter Wagoner Show. To mark the transition, and as a genuine demonstration of gratitude for all he did to help her professionally, Parton wrote "I Will Always Love You" in Wagner's honor. The ballad topped the country singles chart in 1974 and again in 1982. However, the lyrics apparently didn't do much to soothe Wagner. Parton wrote that, bitter over her exit from his program, Porter successfully sued her for $1 million. It was much more than she had at the time, and she ultimately had to pay it in installments. Even so, she seems to have let go of the conflict.
It was because of Porter and his #1 syndicated country show at that time that I got my big break.
Mutt Lange is among a handful of music producers whose name is well known. One of the reasons for that is because he oversaw some of the best-selling albums of all time. After all those hits, he took a major gig behind the console for Shania Twain's sophomore album, The Woman in Me. Thanks in part to Lange's signature radio-friendly sheen, the album performed considerably better than her previous release. The LP sold more than 10 million copies and made Twain a country superstar. To add even more weight to the album's significance, the producer and the singer weren't just artistic collaborators, they were also romantically involved. The pair had married in December 1993, over a year before the record came out. The pair worked together and raised a son until everything ended when they announced their separation in May 2008. Twain's confidant and champion throughout that challenging time was businessman Frederick Thibault. The pair had met in the mid-1990s after Twain hired Thibault's wife, Marie Ann, as a nanny and housekeeper. Twain and Marie Ann Thibault enjoyed a tight friendship, and the couples would enjoy vacations and holidays with one another. However, Twain eventually learned that Lange and Marie Ann were having an affair, and as Twain recalled on The Oprah Winfrey Show, their shared betrayal brought her and Frederick even closer. They got married in 2011. Something of a rebel in country music, Johnny Cash would become one of the style's most famous practitioners. An inductee into both the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Man in Black had sent 7 songs to #1 on Billboard's country singles chart by the time he played at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville in 1965. It wasn't the first time he took the stage at the venue, but it would be his last performance there for a while. By 1965, Cash was addicted to amphetamines and barbiturates. Speaking with 60 Minutes in 1982, he explained that he liked to get high before performing, but that sometimes he would overdo it and the drugs would interfere with his playing. While performing at the Opry, Cash misjudged the amount he was taking and wound up smashing all the stage lights he could reach in agitation. He recalled, "They said they couldn't use me anymore, so I left and used that as an excuse to get really wild and wound up in the hospital with my 3rd time I broke my nose." Cash would eventually achieve sobriety, and he was unbanned from the Opry in 1968. Shortly after releasing his second LP, Dangerous, the double album, in 2021, country singer-songwriter Morgan Wallen instantly set his career back and painted himself as a villain when TMZ acquired and posted video footage of the musician using a racial slur. After a night of partying in Nashville, Wallen was seen returning to his home yelling loudly with his friends. In response to the noise, an irritated neighbor picked up a camera and recorded Wallen yelling a number of derogatory terms, including the N-word. Within the week, Wallen's label Big Loud put a hold on the musician's contract. The iHeartRadio consortium of radio stations pulled Wallen's songs, and Country Music Television instituted a ban on the artist. In response to the backlash, Wallen publicly apologized, telling TMZ, "I'm embarrassed and sorry. I used an unacceptable and inappropriate racial slur that I wish I could take back. I promise to do better."
I was around some of my friends and you know, we stayed dumb stuff together.
Other country stars weighed in on X, formerly known as Twitter, with fellow singer Kelsey Ballerini disavowing Wallen's actions and assuring fans they were not representative of the country genre. In response to the controversy, black country musician Mickey Guyton succinctly wrote, "The hate runs deep." Despite being generally renowned as a stoic musical traditionalist, Randy Travis made headlines for 2 alcohol-related arrests in 1 year. In February 2012, a police officer in Sanger, Texas, noticed a vehicle out of place outside a church. Travis was in the driver's seat, smelling of alcohol and sitting next to an open bottle of wine. Travis was charged with public intoxication and was housed in the county jail for several hours. In a statement to the Associated Press a few hours after release, he stated, "I'm committed to being responsible and accountable and apologize for my actions." 6 months later, Travis entered a Tioga convenience store to buy cigarettes while naked. He reportedly left in a state of agitation when the clerk asked for a form of payment that he did not have. The worker called 911 to report the incident, and shortly thereafter, dispatch fielded another call from an individual who came across a man lying in the road near a vehicle. As it turned out, it was Travis, who police arrested on suspicion of driving while intoxicated after he refused a field sobriety test. An upset Travis told the state troopers he'd shoot them to death, which resulted in an additional charge for retaliation. Travis posted bond and was released. In 2019, the singer admitted that in addition to being under the influence of alcohol, he had also taken the powerful sleep drug Aldean that night as well. In 2023, Jason Aldean released the song Try That in a Small Town. Created by 4 other writers, the song paints an image of a tiny American town where crimes and perceived offenses are punished quickly and extrajudiciously by gun-toting citizens. The song lyrics imply that acts such as spitting in the face of a police officer, burning a flag, or robbing a liquor store could result in some harsh responses by the rowdy county. The accompanying video reiterated the message with some politically charged imagery. Aldean mimed playing the song by a courthouse where a black man was once lynched, and the clip also includes footage of Black Lives Matter protests presented as one of the things one shouldn't theoretically try in a small town. After receiving numerous complaints, CMT removed the video from rotation. Aldean defended himself on the Coops Rockin' Country Saturday Night podcast, saying, "If you've got common sense, you can look at the video and see I'm not saying anything that's not true." Despite the controversy, Try That in a Small Town reached #1 on both Billboard's country and pop charts. Garth Brooks sold more than 95 million albums in the 1990s and is a top-selling solo artist of all time.
I can feed myself and somebody I love doing something that isn't a job. Count me in.
Nevertheless, he's weathered some potentially career-withering scandals. For example, in 1991, he released the single The Thunder Rolls, a song about a physically abused wife who takes revenge on her unfaithful husband with homicide. The video for the song graphically depicted domestic abuse, with Brooks himself portraying the villainous husband. For this reason, the 2 biggest country music TV outlets at the time, the Nashville Network and Country Music Television, refused to put it in rotation. In response, Garth Brooks told Entertainment Weekly, "This is real life. Where I'm from, people aren't afraid to talk about it." Anti-abuse charities around the country came to Brooks' defense, and after pop channel VH1 agreed to air it, The Thunder Rolls went to #1 on the country chart. A little over a year later, Brooks' string of 13 consecutive country top 10 hits was broken when a large number of radio stations refused to air his single We Shall Be Free. The song was an anthem that promoted unity and tolerance to listeners. While that may sound like a fairly universal ethos to promote, many programmers balked at a lyric that implied support for the LGBTQ community. Despite this hiccup, Brooks has managed to continue to produce hits for decades since. Brad Paisley is widely known as a singer of crowd-pleasing, fun-loving hits like Online and Start a Band. Despite his fairly relaxed reputation, he tried to open up the conversation and inspire some musical genre blending with his 2013 single Accidental Racist. Paisley, who co-wrote the song, sings from the point of view of a white Southern man trying to express his pride for where he's from by displaying a Confederate flag. However, he also sings about not wanting anyone to think he supports Confederate ideas like slavery or institutionalized racism, despite his choice to brandish their iconography. After Paisley lays these ideas out, LL Cool J delivers a guest verse that encourages a dialogue about racial issues. What stirred up controversy about the tune is that the song features some lines comparing do-rags to Confederate flags, and gold chains to the iron ones used to restrain slaves. The lighthearted nature of these lyrical exchanges stirred some criticism, with many calling out the pair for being too dismissive of something as brutal as slavery. As David A. Graham wrote in The Atlantic, "It's pretty insane to compare an inoffensive piece of headgear to a flag that represents a treasonous secession movement devoted to maintaining the practice of slavery. It's even more insane to compare jewelry to, slave shackles." The term girl crush is a fun and playful way for one woman to publicly declare their appreciation for another. Throughout the 2010s, the slang term notably morphed into a weekly Woman Crush Wednesday proclamation on social media platforms. In 2015, country group Little Big Town jumped on the trend with their song Girl Crush, which tells the story of a woman with complicated feelings toward her former lover's new partner. The song's narrator sings about how she envies the other woman's appearance and behavior, imagining that if she had those same traits, her ex would still want to be with her instead.
This woman is just looking at the woman her man left her for and wondering, what does she have that I don't have?
However, some country fans didn't notice or appreciate the nuance. Boise country radio DJ Loretta Lynn told the Washington Post that soon after she started playing Girl Crush, her station received numerous angry calls and boycott threats because the Little Big Town song was supposedly, quote, promoting the gay agenda. Lynn's station, like many others across the U.S. that received similar complaints, took the song off its playlists. Girl Crush hit #4 on iTunes single sales charts but couldn't muster the radio support that would usually accompany such demonstrable popularity. In the 1940s and 50s, when Western swing was a popular country music subgenre, fiddler and bandleader Spade Cooley was a major star. After hosting a local variety show in Santa Monica, California in the 1940s, he became a national sensation. His first single, Shame on You, spent 9 weeks at #1 on the country chart, and he had several other serious hits in the years to follow. In 1945, Cooley married his backup singer Ella Mae Evans. However, as country music evolved in the 1950s, Cooley's star power dimmed, and he descended into alcoholism and drug use. In 1961, after mutual infidelity, Evans proposed divorce. Days later, police in Kern County, California arrested Cooley on a murder charge. Authorities believed that the musician had struck and beaten Evans until she was dead in front of their 14-year-old daughter. Later, in 1961, Cooley was convicted of murder and earned a life sentence, after entering and then withdrawing an insanity defense. After he repeatedly expressed remorse, a parole board was set to release Cooley in February 1970. In late 1969, the musician was given a 72-hour furlough to perform at a police event. He played, walked off the stage, and died of a heart attack. As a highly familiar face and voice in country music, guitarist and songwriter Willie Nelson has sold a lot of records, particularly in the 1970s and 80s. However, despite the immense revenue he generated through popular tunes like Whiskey River, On the Road Again, and To All the Girls I've Loved Before, as well as the success of his platinum-selling supergroup The Highwaymen, Nelson neglected to pay the taxes on his music. Nelson blamed his financial team for poor management of his fortune, particularly their choice to invest in what turned out to be dubious tax shelters. In 1990, federal officials descended on Nelson-owned properties in 6 states and seized or confiscated items of value, including master recordings, musical equipment, gold and platinum album awards, and clothing. The IRS auctioned it off, looking to recoup some of the $32 million of Nelson's accumulated tax debt, roughly a third of which came from penalties and interest alone. In 1993, Nelson and the IRS agreed to a $9 million settlement, of which the musician has already paid back $3 million. To help offset some of what he owed, Nelson even released an album with the intention of paying the IRS with the proceeds. Sold via infomercial, the IRS tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories, was released in 1992. As the son of foundational country musician Hank Williams, the much rowdier Hank Williams Jr. became a party country icon with smash hits like Whiskey Bent and Hellbound and Family Tradition. Williams scored his most famous gig ever in 1989 when ABC hired him to remake his 1984 song All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight to be the opening theme to its blockbuster Monday Night Football broadcasts. The song served as a ritualistic weekly pump-up tune for more than 2 decades. However, in 2011, Williams appeared as a guest on the Fox News talk show Fox and Friends. The panel discussed how progressive President Barack Obama went golfing with conservative Speaker of the House John Boehner, a meeting Williams was not particularly happy about.
Remember the golf game? That was one of the biggest political mistakes ever.
To highlight how much of an opponent to the Conservative Party Obama was at the time, Williams went on to liken their meeting to Adolf Hitler playing a game with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The comparison caught the Fox hosts and many viewers off guard. In a statement, ESPN said it was extremely disappointed with Williams' remarks and then dropped the singer's theme song from Monday Night Football. In response, Williams apologized in a press release, writing, "The thought of the leaders of both parties juking and high-fiving on a golf course while so many families are struggling to get by simply made me boil over and make a dumb statement, and I am very sorry if it offended anyone." Rock and roll emerged partially from country music, so there was a lot of overlap between the genres in the 1950s. One of the people to most famously straddle the line between country and early rock was Jerry Lee Lewis. With hits like Whole Lotta Shakin' Going On and Great Balls of Fire, Lewis was well on his way to superstardom before his controversial third marriage led to international distaste. In December 1957, the 22-year-old Lewis wed his 13-year-old second cousin, Myra Gale Brown. Their big debut as a couple came when Lewis brought Brown along on his 1958 UK tour. Upon landing at Heathrow Airport in London, reporters peppered the couple with questions. During the interview, Lewis lied and said that his new wife was 15. The unseemly news reached back to the US and killed Lewis's professional momentum. His tour was canceled, DJs stopped playing his songs, and his appearance fee dropped from $10,000 per night to $250. Lewis and Brown divorced in 1970, with Brown reporting she'd been repeatedly abused throughout the marriage. In a musical genre that rewards authenticity, Loretta Lynn became a country juggernaut. Largely autobiographical hits like Blue Kentucky Girl and Coal Miner's Daughter won Lynn many fans, although she lost a few in 1975 with the release of The Pill. Lynn, who married at age 15 and had birthed 4 children by the age of 20, co-wrote the song as a celebration of the birth control pill and the women's rights revolution it helped spawn. Reproductive rights were a hot-button issue, however, and the largely conservative and religious country music establishment objected to the anthem. The Pill quickly peaked at number 5 on Billboard's Hot Country Songs, and then faltered when radio stations started to ban it. However, the song found a new audience when curious pop fans started listening to it after the scandal broke out. The Pill ultimately went to number 70 on the pop-based Hot 100, making it the biggest crossover hit of Lynn's career.
I definitely couldn't be doing what I'm doing unless she had broken down those barriers and had been a songwriter for all of us.
The controversial nature of The Pill never fully disappeared. Despite Lynn's formidable standing as a country legend, the song still suffered a soft ban from country radio. In the wake of Lynn's death in 2022, The Pill earned exactly one spin on terrestrial radio nationwide. The bluegrass-inspired country trio The Chicks, formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, became one of the biggest country acts of the late 1990s and early 2000s. However, the Texas-based group lost many fans and the support of the country establishment at large in March 2003. Just before the George W. Bush administration controversially invaded Iraq on the hard-to-prove auspice that the country was illegally harboring weapons of mass destruction, lead chick Natalie Maines said during a London concert, "Just so you know, we're ashamed the President of the United States is from Texas."
I had a lot of questions that I felt were unanswered.
The fallout came quickly. The radio conglomerate Cumulus told its stations to no longer play any Chick songs. And within 2 weeks of Maine's remarks, the Chick single Travelin' Soldier fell from number 1 on Billboard's country singles to off the chart completely. Maines clarified her remarks in a statement issued 2 days after the London concert, saying, "I feel the president is ignoring the opinions of many in the US and alienating the rest of the world. My comments were made in frustration, and one of the privileges of being an American is you are free to voice your own point of view." Days later, Maines publicly apologized to President Bush. It took 3 years for radio to bring back the Chicks. However, that was just in time for their album Taking the Long Way to come out, which featured the track Not Ready to Make Nice that directly addressed the backlash the band had received from the controversy. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website.